Okay, thank you. I will also mention my colleagues Nils Evarnes and Steinar Høseggen, who is unfortunately not able to be here today. And I'm glad that there are still people at the end of the conference. Thank you all. Okay, so base map specification is a specification for traditional mapping. We take the best from our experience in Norway, and we align this with Inspire specifications. A few words, the outline of my presentation, background, why are we doing this in Norway? Why another specification? A few words about the content and the teams, the architecture, and the UML model structure, modeling techniques, tools, and achievements and lessons learned. I'll try to do this in 10 minutes. So I will start with the background. The idea about this is Norwegian grants to republics of the earlier Soviet Union. So when it collapsed, there were countries who did not really have very well maps or databases. And these grants is actually related to these former republics and countries on the Balkan area. And spatial data is an important part of it. And the Norwegian government actually gives approximately 14 million euro to projects in these countries. And establishment of primary base map data is a very important component in this picture. So this comes in addition to the grants that Norway pays to be part of the internal market, right? This is additional money from the Norwegian government. Why another specification? I guess you would put up that question. I mean, we have so many. We have Inspire, of course. That's why we are here. We have European location framework, now European location services from Eurogeographics. We have other slightly less complex specifications on the way to at least try to accommodate some of the needs from Inspire in situ data. But this one is traditional mapping. Thank you. 2 minutes left. So it's large scale. It's based upon our long tradition in Norway on producing this kind of data. It's hard to stand here and say it is not Inspire compliant. But please keep in mind this is for countries which are not part of the European Union. There's no legislation, but they have an interest to look in the direction of the West. What are we doing in the West? And I recognize that some of these countries may be even more interested in Inspire than we who are obliged to implement it. So that's nice. And it could be extended at the national level. It is a framework. It is not the specification. It's a framework for a specification with the basic features, the basic semantics, which could be extended at the national level to fulfill national use requirements. And we take the best from Inspire and the best from our large-scale data specification. And we base this also on experience we have from previous projects. Architecture. We look into the Inspire teams, the domain models. A subset of these will be what we call the domain data models, the base map domain models. And a sub-part of this again will be the models for the data capture, which is traditional photogrammetric data capture. The key word here is model-driven architecture. Everything is model-driven. We use tools to generate the database. We use tools to generate the GML application schemas. And the data providers in the private industries in these countries, they will deliver this GML data, which will be uploaded to the base map database, and which will be the basis for traditional digital maps and printed maps. Those of you who are familiar with Enterprise Architect, I guess there are some of you who really are that, will see this is from the project browser. It explains how the repository is built up. And it's not very different from Inspire, except that here we have Inspire up front. In Inspire, you have other standards which Inspire, again, is based on. So we have the SOLC feature catalog, which is a national feature catalog, feature concept dictionary. We use part of this in this base map specification. And we have what we call FKB, the Norwegian product specification for large scale. And the base map specification packages is split into two. This is for the domain models in general, for generating the database. And we have a specific package for the data capture. And that will be the framework for the product specification for data capture. Modeling techniques. We have been involved in a couple of projects also with Inspire, looking into extensions of Inspire. And during that work, we identified three main concepts: subtype, realize, redefine. I will not go into technical details on this. Just to compare with other tasks, the European Location Framework uses a subtype, which means that it is fully Inspire compliant, but we realize the concepts. So the figure you see on the screen here with the green boxes from Inspire, and it is the UML notation for realizing. It's a very loose couple. We take what we need from the semantics in the Inspire. Regarding the teams, we have those one in bold, the nature, which is part of land use, building and constructions, hydrography, transport utilities, and the one in bold is what we can get from the traditional photogrammetric data capture, but there are also other teams which is traditional part of such a base map or reference map specification, like addresses, administrative units, cadastral parcels, geographical names, protected sites, and elevation. A few words about the tools. I mentioned this is fully model-driven. So we use Enterprise Architect with the subversioning. We use shape change to generate a GML application schema. We have developed a plugin for Enterprise Architect in Norway. It's a company called Architectum, which is a graphical user interface for shape change, which makes it much easier to generate the GML application schemas, the XSD schemas. We have a tool also developed by a Norwegian company, Architectum, GIS tools for UML, which is actually a graphical user interface for generation of different kind of databases, ArcGIS, PostGIS, GeoServer, Degree, and FME mapping. We have derived in Norway what we call a GML example generation. When you have an XSD schema, you can make a pseudo representation. Thank you. Very useful to really understand what this data will look like. We use PostGIS database, and we have also developed a tool which is very generic, a validation tool for UML models according to the relevant ISO standards. That will be my last slide. Achievements and lessons learned. We have applied this now in Georgia. Very few comments and changes to the framework based upon the experience there. And we will apply this now in Moldova, Ukraine, Kosovo, Montenegro, and Albania. So I really look forward to what kind of feedback we will get from implementing this framework in these countries. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, Morten. I'm Ulla Matsuli, National Contact Point of Denmark. How are these maps going to be used in the countries? Are they for public administration or for sale or whatever?
It is for public administration, for the mapping agencies in these countries. How they will utilize this at the national level, that's not part of the project.
Marcin Grudzień from Polish NMCA. I have a question. I noticed several tools for modeling that were developed by some Norwegian companies. Whether this is an open source or not, whether they'll be also available for other organizations willing to use it.
All the tools mentioned are open source except from one, which is the GIS tools to make the database. That is a commercial product. But the plugin for shape change, the XML generator is available, and the URL was part of the presentation.
So maybe I have a last question, because it was on base maps, and I have also seen in slides it's also about printing maps. What's about the role of the portrayal and the flexibility of the portrayal?
Good question. We haven't addressed portrayal yet, but it would be a natural extension to the product specification to define some SLDs, for example, or symbology encoding, but that's the next step.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to present our latest project on streamlining PRTR data. What can you expect in the next 10-15 minutes? First, we'll give you a short introduction into the processes, into the involved processes. After this, we will briefly present the considerations and targets we are pursuing with the project before Simon Jürgen presents the main points of implementation. And we want to end the presentation with a summary of the results and a short outlook. So let's take a look at Buber Online. It's a web tool for plant operators and federal states to report data on pollutant releases, as well as wastewater and waste shipments from industry. Actors report the data twice a year. In autumn, corrections to previous data sets, and in spring, new data and also corrections. In Buber Online, around 5,400 facilities were registered for the most recently published reporting data for 2016. The reporting from the national authority to EEA is made currently manual, and Inspire is not yet supported. Therefore, Buber Online was extended by components of the spatial data infrastructure of the agency, which is shown on the next slide. This spatial data infrastructure is the Inspire extension for Buber Online, means the infrastructure has tools, server, software, and databases to publish data conform to the directory. Originally, the infrastructure for Inspire was set up. Today, its field of application is extended to any kind of data processing and transfer, such as open data, or in this case, eReporting. And how both infrastructures work together, you can see here. So we have the Buber Online process, reporting process. This platform was extended by a transformation tool from the spatial data infrastructure to, in the first step, to extract the data, the reporting data of the Buber database, and to transform this data in the PRTR atom schema for Inspire predefined download service, who's in operation since 2015. New in this project is another transformation process for SOS that considers the Inspire and eReporting requirements So here we have an approach similar to the reporting of air quality data, what was realized in a former project in 2016, 2017. So as a result, we have two options for delivering the report data, the push upload by the national authority and maybe an automatable pull download, in this case maybe by the EAA or other interested users. So.
Okay, so I would like to now introduce a bit more about the implementation that was performed in this context. So the idea was some countries already have, and also the Umweltbundesamt in Germany have investigated and have set up standardized INSPIRE-compliant download services for sharing observation data in context of air quality that was also used for some kind of service-based e-reporting to the European Environment Agency. And in the past years, we already experimented, that's Conterra and 52 North, together with the German Umweltbundesamt, to investigated as well how such e-reporting for air quality could be integrated into the infrastructure of the German Environmental Agency. And based on the good experiences that were made, the idea was now to try and explore how this approach could also be transferred to other types of data flows. And in this case, the idea was to use that as a first starting point to investigate the PRTR, so the pollutant release reporting flows, and also to try how such a similar approach could be implemented here. Here, the basic approach is, Marco Hohmann already introduced the infrastructure at the UBA. So there's a set of databases available which are storing the data in an internal data model. And here we are now using the FME in order to transform this data and to transfer this data into an external or into a publication database, which is then used as a baseline for all further data flows to the outside. That means, together with Conterra, we worked on a transformation workflow that basically takes these input data, converts that into a model which is aligned to the observations and measurement specifications. You will also find more about that in the INSPIRE technical guidance, how such observations may be structured to be INSPIRE compliant. And then this Postgres database in this case was used for further data publication. On top of that database, we have set up on the one hand an SOS, Sensor Observation Service implementation. If you look at the INSPIRE technical guidance, since roughly 2 years now, the SOS is one option for implementing INSPIRE compliant download services, and this was now put on top of the database in order to have an INSPIRE compliant stream of these PRTR data sets that follows as well the data modeling principles, and later on maybe some input, also some initial thought how such service-based e-reporting of PRTR data could work. At the same time, so one of the goals was to set up this reporting workflow, and on the other hand, the idea was also to facilitate, as soon as we have these web services for sharing the data, also application development becomes a lot easier, and for that, a complementary REST API as part of that sensor observation service was set up in order to feed different data viewers, which can then visualize the data. So there were two benefits for the German Umweltbundesamt. On the one hand, having this reporting workflow established for future use, so it's not yet official, it's a proposal how that could work. And on the other hand, have a nice way to build web-based applications. And for that, for example, Conterra Map Apps may be used, or the 52 North Helgoland Sensor Web Viewer. And that's a screenshot that you have here. So as soon as we had the server running, which was quite straightforward with the FME transformation, you are able, for example, to visualize different observed parameters for the PRTR in a list, and then select the stations for which these data sets are available. And then, for example, in the next step, you would even be able to visualize the temporal change of these parameters via diagrams and other nice visualization options. And with that, I would like to hand over again to Marco Hohmann for some conclusions.
So it's the last slide in this presentation. So in this project, we have profiting from the knowledge of the former air quality project, as we explained. The result can be seen as an approach to thinking in a number of ways. First, Buber Online reporting platform is currently undergoing restructuring, and the connection to Inspire and eReporting must subsequently to adapt it. So this project could help us to realize this in a permanent way, and could also help to remove the predetermined breaking points. So this is more an internal view. The second point is this project considers only a part of emission data of industry, so the PRTR pollutant release, pollutant transfer, and the waste transfer. It could also be seen as an approach to other issues related to industrial emissions in the future, such as the Industrial Emissions Directive or large combustion plants, similar actions on this the EA has presented yesterday. And third, maybe also imaginable as use case of and for discussion in the rebuilding process of EA's reporting platform, ReportNet. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Is about creating value, especially for the user. So I will speak a little bit about which barriers we found when going open, because open data doesn't mean that it's accessible. And I will touch a little bit about how we applied a new way of working with sprints and very agile, and show you where we are right now in implementing a new, hopefully, more user-friendly platform. So here we go. Haha, 80s, do you remember? Well, I'll just use this one. Why does that always happen to me? But this should work, shouldn't it?
It should do.
Why doesn't it work?
How easy to access to the presentation?
Yeah, easy access to presentation. That one? Thank you, 80s. That is Nordic collaboration for you. Thank you. So what happens when you go open? I present. What you see, the arrow here is when we went open in 2013. Poof, a lot of hits. And that is pleasing. What you see is a 75 times number of users. That's a huge amount. But we also had a lot of questions then from the users, because many of the users were new users and they were not geospatially skilled. They came from all domains, and even my mother tried to log on. In Denmark, we have a strategy, a policy, and a demand to all citizens that they must self-service. So, of course, our map supply should also be based on self-service. What we found out when we went open was that our pure help desk was overloaded with questions about how do I do this? What does the WFS mean? Where do I find this map? And so and so. So we just had to do something. This trend has actually just been expanding and expanding. We're getting more and more users, more and more hits, and we still have an overloaded help desk. So we used a little bit of business analytics here and tried to make a user route here. So what happened what we could see was that already on the front page of our map supply, we had a 40% drop-off. Of course, we do not know whether the telephone rang and the people had to go and answer it, but it's a huge number. Those who actually managed to go to the second step, where you are almost where you can download something, but not quite, we had a 45% drop-off, and so on and so forth. Something was definitely wrong. We lost our users already at the beginning. We talked to some of the users. We asked them to actually put in a username, so we have some contact with the users. And we asked some of them, and they said, well, first of all, I can't find anything. I don't know what the words mean, and I'm not sure it's fit for my purpose. So what do you want, we ask? Well, we want it easy and fit for my purpose. Okay, we have like, you saw how many users. And then we have this other approach, standardization. And standardization is good. I love standards. But one size does not necessarily fit all. So, easy, fit my purpose, one size fits all, we were challenged. Earlier, we have done a lot of personas and tried to customize our user interface to all these many roles and needs that you can have. And it was really complex. You as a user have to identify yourself. Wondered if today I am role number 5, because then I have to press this button. But what if I change my role during my journey into role number 3? How do I get back? So on and so forth. It didn't work. I did it. So a lot of barriers. We sat down, thought about how would we like a target picture to look like. Well, we would like the user to have one access point. And we want an overview very fast. Where am I? Where do I have to go in order to fulfill my needs? And then all the back office, all the machinery, all that's going on, they shouldn't care about it 1 minute. That's our problem, to get that to work. They shouldn't care about it. So that's an easy picture to paint up, isn't it? We knew that if we sat down and tried to fix this, we would just do more of the same as we have done before. So we engaged with a small, agile design firm from Aarhus, Jutland, and 3 very young, I can say that, very young and very energetic persons showed up. And they say, well, we know a lot about design. We know what ticks the users. We can make any application that will flung you off the board, so you just go ahead. But we have a method that you have to apply. We do it fast, and we do it based on user journeys. When you come into an agency like mine, and I have to ask my Director General, can I please use half of the agency for like 4 sprints, 4 days? I don't know what is going to come out of it. I have absolutely no idea if we reach our goal, but we will try. The first thing he says is not, yes, yes, go ahead. No worries. So it took a little bit of persuasion, but we did it. And I think that was brave. So we went from being focused on the outside, how it looked and what functionality it had, to look at it in a more holistic way. How do you actually feel? I know, saying that in an agency like mine, we want to know how the customer feels. Well, we do want to know how they feel. Do they have a good feeling when they have shopped in my shop? So this is what we did. Patterns and actions, not so much personas and personal needs. And we came up with 4 behavioral patterns. Some who use our data directly, the users, and some who develop in their own business or solutions based on our data. And again, these are not user types, they are behavioral patterns. And this is a typical sprint, right? 5 days. And you end up inviting in some external users to test the prototype that you had made during these 4 days. When we started this, I was a little bit skeptical. I mean, it's okay. It's really okay to be young and energetic. I wish I were. But I was a little bit concerned. In 4 days, what can you actually create in 4 days? When we do projects in my agency, you start from here, and then you go like half a year, and then you go another half a year, and then you have a huge report, and then you start implementing it step by step, and the world has already left you. So this was a new method. So we did like this. Great fun, really fun. We did 4 sprints for each type of behavioral patterns. We had 8 external experts in to interview during the building of this prototype, just to check, are we on the right track? We had 16 external testing, and actually we involved the whole agency in testing their prototype. I won't go into detail with the prototype. It looks like that, and it's interactive, and you test it, and you film the people testing it, and you get a whole lot of insight, a whole lot of knowledge. And you really, really can work very fast from idea to product. So what do we got? How am I on time? Okay. Functional prototype that we can use again and again and elaborate on. An information architecture that actually that actually enables the users to go from role to role, from level to level, across domain, function, whatever. A lot of insights and, yeah, design elements, recommendation, and a lot of work to do. Just briefly, what is an insight? It is, for instance, this. We learned that it is possible with one entrance for all the behavioral patterns. We learned that the first meeting is crucial because the user wants to know that exactly when they press the button and enter your platform, am I the right place? Is this where I'm going to shop? Can you fulfill my needs? Do I trust you? And if you don't signal that, you end up losing a lot of users already on your first page. Trust and credibility is very important. We have authoritative data, and we're proud of it, and we use a lot of energy into quality securing these data. And that must be upfront. Where am I shopping? And then make it fast. They don't want to read 7 use cases and click through a lot of alternative metadata explanations. They want to get started. Of course, all that information should be available, but not upfront. I have a problem, I want to solve it. And then filtering, because there is a lot of material. You know that from your own businesses. And it is very, very difficult to find. That is the hard part, and we haven't cracked that yet. How do you filter in order to actually provide the needed for the 4 behavioral types? We're not there yet, but we're working on it. And then, from my point of view, the most important insight is this. You can do a lot with your interface, with your platforms, with your functionality, and you can paint it in a lovely color, but if you do not have an organization that supports that, it will only die. So this is the big part that we're going to work on. One user account, we have many systems with different user account. System, if you want to shop in one agency and go and shop in another, you have to log in again. So one user account is what we need to work on, but we can't do it alone. I'm almost there. So right now, we're actually trying to implement the prototype into our machine to see where the gaps. How good are we really? How well does it function, this SDI we are so proud of? Can we actually fulfill needs? One of the things that we have used Inspire for is actually to realize that you need this close link between object and service. And even though I was a bit, I thought it was a bit difficult with the thematic view at first, I must say I have come to love it. Well, like it, well, accept it. Anyhow, it opened up our eyes for this necessity. And that was it.
Atina is my name. I was just wondering, was there a lot of resistance to this new approach within your organization? Because, you know, we do things as we did it in the past. Why shouldn't we change, you know? And, yeah.
Yes, well, a lot of resistance, I don't know. We had the fortune of having our board of directors in very early. That is always a help. But I can say there's a skepticism from my very skilled colleagues who are a bit afraid of the quality. Now are we going all popular? Is this going to be like Google because we are really better and so on? So yeah, there are skepticism. I wouldn't say resistant.
I came from Slovenia, as I was introduced, from Slovenian Mapping Authority. And in the next few minutes, I would like to share with you some experiences regarding the coordination, which we have within one project or program of several projects, which we called eSpatil. And it was launched a year and a half ago. And within this program of projects, we try to implement as much as possible also Inspire obligation in Slovenia in several institutions involved in this project. And from those reasons, we are faced with one challenge regarding the coordination within these stakeholders. This is content of my presentation, and I will just briefly go through the projects which are called eSpatil, and try to stress a little bit more time for challenges regarding cooperation and coordination. If we look at the dictionary, the word coordination is to organize group of people to work together in appropriate way or working well. So this, each of this word in the sentence is a challenge themselves. So within the eSpatil program of projects, the eSpatil is eProstor, but we would like to put this as much as possible attractive address, so we put this E in front of the space. And generally we are working on the establishing the missing part of common spatial data infrastructure in Slovenia. So also we build up the new spatial information system for urban planning in the Ministry of Spatial Planning and Environment, and renew the existing real estate data sets and databases which Slovenian Mapping Authority is responsible for. In the information rearrangement or re-engineering will be made. We would like to also capture some missing data and improved existing data which we are maintaining. And also we established a coordination office for support of those 4 content projects. Why we need to re-engineering the existing real estate records or databases? Because of the historical reason, they are built up in several separate or silos or software and hardware solutions which are not, let's say, harmonized in the centralized way. And the second reason is that we would like to, in this project, connect the real estate records as much as possible with the urban planning and spatial planning data sets, and to support the process of building permit issue and urban planning process on the local level. So to achieve this, we need firstly also improved existing data set. One example is related with the geographical part of land cadastre data, because we just, in the past, we vectorized the old cadastral maps and tried to reference them into a national reference system as much as possible. But when you put together all this data and combine with other topographical sources which have, let's say, better positional accuracy because of the original source, then we're faced with several questions about the harmonization or how the different data set fit between each other, and we decide to do some improvement on the graphical part of the land cadastre data within this project. The one huge new challenge is combine all 212 urban plans which are already exist in digital form several many years ago. From each municipality is responsible to realize the urban planning process, and the results were never put together on the national level with the so-called authoritative improvement. So there are several seamless data sets from the land use and land cover elements from these municipality urban plans, but nowadays the Ministry of Environment and Spatial Planning decide to establish a common information system where all municipality will bring the results of the urban planning process, and also there will be collected all protection sites or limitation in the process of urban planning and spatial planning from different stakeholders, from different ministries and agencies which are involved in the Slovenian spatial planning process. And this is also one of the challenges, because here we are faced with as much as possible many data owners and decision makers which are involved in the spatial planning process. From those reasons, the result will be the spatial information system, which will be used operationally for, as I said, building permit issues process and urban planning on the local level, and some other processes regarding with inspections on the field, and etc. That all those content will function as much as possible, of course, here is necessary to finalize all these elements of spatial data infrastructure, which was built in the previous years in Slovenia, because we say that all this process should be as much as possible Inspire compliant, and have in mind all these, let's say, guiding and principles which are also based in Inspire directive. So within this project, we also opening several services already. So this is part of also fulfilling the obligation from the Inspire on one side, and also to automatize as much as possible those processes which I speak before related with urban planning and spatial planning in Slovenia. To introduce this, all these activities to all those stakeholders, we try to, as much as possible, to share the knowledge and share the information between all of them. And for those reasons, a lot of documents, a lot of guidelines were translated or prepared new one in Slovenian language for to be, as Ula mentioned, we try to be as simple as much as possible, but in that content you almost could not stay simple, because there is a complex issue with the several institutions and stakeholders which must to understood, first of all, the architecture, and second, all the role of particular data which is coming from different sources, and the value of those data depends on the source and depends on the authority which is staying behind, etc. And on the other hand, there is also some resistance of, let's say, spatial planners, because they were afraid that some surveyor or some geoinformatic specialist will just simply put together these limitations in the town and cities and realized in some kind of urban plan. But this was, of course, not intention. It was not possible also. To make our life even more complicated, we decided to transform from the existing geodetic reference system into the new one, the entire data sets in the country. We have this obligation from already several years ago, but now we found the final time that all the data sets will be also transformed into the so-called European coordinate reference system from our existing coordinate reference system, which was on the stage last 50 years. So to achieve with these ideas and these informations to as much as possible wider community, we put a lot of efforts into the communication in the capacity building and in training and introduction education for as much as possible audience. Here's just an example how the transformation into the new coordinate system is tried to be supported with some materials. We try to show as much as possible plastic how and what was the effects, because you immediately when you start to speak about the transformation from one to another coordinate reference system, the best thing is we say just press this button and everything will be done, and many of users are afraid that something will be lost and change in the end. So here is examples of those kind of materials, and to put this topic into wider context, we would like to as much as possible link activities within the eSpatil program of projects, which is coordination organization or structure is listed in the yellow square, with as many other ongoing projects and initiatives within the government and also within the other stakeholders, and to be part of the strategic board for governmental informatics within the Slovenia, because governmental informatics was centralized several years ago within the Ministry of Public Authority, and we try to establish regular and formal relations between those two, let's say, organizational structure, put as much as possible into the coordinational structure. So the last but not least is also the Project Coordination Office, which try to bring this message to the different group of audience, the experts who are involved in the process, who are part of the projects, and also to the broader audience, because we recognize that only with a big campaign about what mean those changes within the structure, within the processes of spatial planning, urban planning, and what importance is that source data are on the appropriate quality level to be used in that processes. And without of those, we could not count on the success at the end of the process. Mistake. So this is all what I would like to share with you within our program of projects called eSpace or eSpatil. And as I say in the beginning, coordination, cooperation is one of those most useful words within these ongoing activities. Of course, we try to be as much as possible in line with all the, let's say, INSPIRE principles and principles of open government policy regarding the data, regarding the processes, to be as much as possible open and interoperable. But of course, to achieve this possibility for reuse, for harmonization, it is necessary to build up appropriate capacity. We are still not satisfied with the number of people who are on board with this knowledge and with this, let's say, awareness. And the main and again the much more and most important part of those project programs are, of course, people and our colleagues who are dealing with this in daily work. So thank you very much for your patience.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. The first two words, collaboration and coordination, what are the main obstacles to achieve that, if there are any?
The main obstacle is the behavior within the public authorities, because each of us want to protect our own backyard and don't want to be as much as possible transparent, because afraid of some kind of competition between the for the same amount of money or for the same amount of budget resources, etc. So this is more or less related with the traditional way of thinking into the public administration which are involved in that, and also legal part, because within this we should change some of the legal acts which could allow us to improve the process of spatial planning or building permits and to understand of usage of data within these processes. So immediately when you start to change some legal acts, then a lot of ideas came on board, and this usually people are afraid to change the existing processes because they don't know how the final results will looks like. So mainly in our hands.
Further question? Maybe one very pragmatic question. You spoke about the location improvement for the cadastre. How did the people react?
Here is needed a lot of explanation, of course, because immediately when even if you have the transformation with all these parameters, with all those, let's say, evidence what was done, in which type some slight rotation were made, people immediately afraid about the ownership and about the land plot. But we should to explain again and again that nothing was happening in the real life, because all the measures were done in the archive and all the data are still the same. Where this, let's say, improvement was made only on the picture of those parcels on the seamless level in the entire country, which was used for, let's say, intersection in the different analysis and processes. Even here, of course, we must have in mind with the positional accuracy of the different measurements which was done during the last 200 years. And for those reasons, many times this is more or less explanation work than pure technical what was the, let's say, method for usage, this graphical improvement of picture of the parcels in the system.
Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to me to be here in the Inspire conference and have the opportunity to share ideas and also practice related to spatial data infrastructure, even though I'm not from Europe, as you may recognize. My name is Tandang Yuliadi, and currently I work at the Geospatial Information Agency in Indonesia, but also studying as the PhD candidate in the University of Tokyo. So today I would like to share my research about the framework for NSDI stakeholder analysis. As you may know that SDI has multifaceted nature, and its development include discussion on many aspects, for example, the concepts, data, technology, policy, institutional, and also other aspects as illustrated in these mind maps. And some of the researchers stated SDI as is a complex system. One of the reasons of SDI complexity is the various role of the actors involved. Hellmayer defined 6 types of stakeholders involved in the SDI development and known as ICA model. Previous studies mainly discuss on the identification of these stakeholders in some countries such as Namibia or South Africa. However, this ICA model focus only on identifying their roles with no information about their resource capacities and interrelationships. Therefore, this research aims to cover this aspect. The case study is in Indonesia, where we still have problems related to stakeholders' involvement. Based on the government decree, the NSDI network consists of about 622 institutions, known as the network nodes, which come from central government agencies, state institutions, province, and also municipalities. Until last April, only 6% or 38 institutions are connected to this NSDI network. In addition, data providers and dataset availability is still lacking. A longitudinal observation between 2016 to 2017 shows that there is a slight increase of data providers, but in contrary, the number of datasets are decreased sharply, as we can see in this figure. So why does it happen? To answer that, we conduct an NSDI stakeholder analysis, which has 3 steps: identifying stakeholders from documentary evidence and interviews, and also categorizing stakeholder by creating stakeholder diagram. And the last one is to investigate relationship using actor linkage graph. For the step 2 and 3, we conduct a questionnaire survey to 46 respondents and different stakeholders. We determined 15 types of stakeholders involved in the NSDI implementation. 7 of them are from government agencies, from number 1 to number 7, and the rest are from private sectors, academia, NGO, and also general users. Each of these stakeholders have their own interests, resource, and also potential influence to the NSDI implementation. So this table presents some example. For instance, central government agencies have interest in collecting maps and accessing web services, and have high influence in the implementation because they are capable in setting up the network node. Based on the stakeholders table, we create a power interest grid, which is one of the well-known methods for characterizing a stakeholder based on the power and their interests. Power here defined as the stakeholder that is explicitly mandated in the regulation and can arrange or influence policy for NSDI implementation. So we can see the key players are mostly from the government agencies, and the stakeholders who have high interest but low power is mainly from the private sector and also from the NGOs. With the intention to specify information on the resource owned by each stakeholder, we add a criteria related to stakeholder capabilities. For example, there are 4 features of stakeholder capabilities. We determine data provision, technological infrastructure, human capacity, and also financial resource. The detailed indicators presented using 5-point Likert scale, where 1 considered as the least resource available, and 5 is the maximum resource. And this graph shows an example of the survey result from the for the technological infrastructure condition of each stakeholder. We can see that government agency, for example, the BIG and also 80% of the central government have good infrastructure, but most of the municipalities or districts do not have resource for data publication, and also the private sector have a capability to publishing services. So based on each capability results, we generate the NSDI stakeholder diagram. From this diagram, we can understand stakeholders based on their power, interest, and also availability of resource. We can know why does the participation of the municipalities or district government is low. It is because they do not have enough financial, technological, and also human resource. Meanwhile, provincial government, even though they have medium financial and technological resource, but lack in personnel. Now we have understood about the stakeholders' capacity, but how about the relationships? Does it influence the implementation? To investigate that, I use actor linkage table where it describes their interrelation in rows and columns. I collect 3 indicators. First is existing cooperation, second meeting records, and last one is the data sharing. These indicators are used as a basis to determine whether the relationship is strong, illustrated in the green color, weak, yellow, and or maybe unconnected in the red color. Based on that table, the NSDI actor linkage graph is generated. The graph represents stakeholders' relationship with their degree of centrality. From this graph, we learn that most of the strong collaboration exists between the government agencies, but nevertheless, the stakeholders in the state institution, we haven't determined enough collaboration, or there is no unconnected between the government agencies with the state institution. And in addition, also we understand that the private sector, for now, is not to actively participate in the NSDI. Some remarks from the NSDI stakeholder analysis that we understand the key players mostly are the government agencies because they have enough resource on data, budget, and also technological. However, the municipalities have drawbacks in their participation. And we also understand that to be more enlarge the NSDI, we need to raise the awareness of the geospatial information benefits to the contact setters, and also we need to improve strong collaboration between the private sectors. And as a conclusion, Indonesian NSDI may be effective for data sharing and also reduce data duplication. But if we want to improve and also enlarge the broaden the scope of NSDI, we need to have a good collaboration with business sector, academia, and also community. And we can also understand that the NSDI stakeholder diagram used in this research and also the actor linked graphs can be used as the framework for categorizing and defining stakeholder interaction. And last one is, it is necessary to conduct more future study to verify this framework, and particularly in different NSDI setting, and I'm looking forward for collaboration with some European countries. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you. Thank you for your talk, Jan-Erik Bulens from Wageningen University and research. I was wondering, you have in your stakeholder analysis the cost, but did you consider also to include some kind of benefits in your analysis?
For my research, I didn't conduct a benefit for the analysis, but we kind of identify some reason or interest of these stakeholders why they want to conduct or to involve in this NSDI. And most of them is they believe that they will have benefits by kind of use this data sharing and data platform to decrease the, to increase the decision-making process and to reduce the time for solving their problems, particularly in spatial data planning.
Thank you for a very interesting presentation. Could you elaborate a little bit more about the private sector? Mm-hmm. I mean, at least in my country, we often see the private sector as very important for the SDI because they are driving the market and actually wanting the data. Could you please say a little bit more? Yeah. In case of Indonesia, the private sector mainly is from the survey and mapping companies, because most of the government agencies or in the national or also in local, they kind of have a project to have digital mapping to map their own territories. So most of the private sector is come from the mapping and survey agency. So, however, there are also some of the private sector who deal with the application development, but the number is very, very small. So I think it is important also to encourage the number of the developing application, or maybe some platform services, private companies, to more enlarge the NSDI.
Further question? So thank you for this contribution, also for the link to the International Cartographic Association you did.
Thank you.
From my understanding, so this work, research, analysis, is a preparatory work for the legal frame that should establish, or is it more bottom-up?
I understand that it is kind of institutional arrangement analysis, so it is more like kind of top-down. I mean, because in Indonesia, we have kind of decree, and it's mandated that the Geospatial Information Agency is the coordinator of the NSDI initiative. So it's more like a top-down method.
The final obstacle that is on your way to the coffee break and to the very interesting plenary session. So I'll try to speed race through my 25 slides. I have a very challenging topic. I gave it a lot of thought during last days how to how to address this. What's truly possible in Open Inspire data? If you are looking for a direct answer, then you won't get it here. But I want to present you the effort that our association and national mapping authorities make to achieve Open Inspire services and address open data. So who are we? Eurogeographics is a non-for-profit association of 63 organizations from 46 European countries. Today we cover 90% of all organizations that deal with national mapping, cadastre, land registration, and we are still open to those institutions that deal with these issues and are not our members yet. So that's a quite a long list, you see. Our industry that we cover is responsible for investment of nearly 1.5 billion euros yearly in works related to development of geoinformation. Our members and our association is a partner for European Commission, for businesses and for citizens. Our members employ more than 66,000 specialists in geodesy, cartography, geospatial, but also public officers and lawyers. So it's quite a large thing. What are the key goals of our activity? Well, first of all, is representation of interests of our members and their doings. Second is networking, bringing together the specialists, facilitating sharing knowledge. But we also have a strategic goal, which is facilitating access to our members' data. And we do that through development of European Location Service. That's the trick. Now I know how it happens. So facilitating access to our members' data. We do it in a sort of old-fashioned analog way through providing cartographic mapping products, which are administrative boundary map, Euro-regional map, and another products. But also we want to develop, we are working on development of a platform that will allow access to mapping services provided by our members, which will be the European Location Service. So the main purpose of this location service is building up a single point of access to harmonized, standardized, basing on Inspire and ELF standards data sets maintained by national mapping authorities. On this map, you see the current coverage of our data. In green, it's data services that are already available. The dark green are the ones that need to go under improvement and development, and the blue countries provide their mapping data to our products. So, European Location Service, single access point with clear pricing, licensing model for the users. Enter. We all realized that we need to address also the issue of open data. As European Location Service will provide access to everything, we know that there is also open data that is already there, and we decided that we need a separate part of the service that will address the open data. So to do that, we've come up with a project activity to set up a organizational framework and sort of legal framework for having this open data service. So to achieve that, we decided that it's necessary to have an open data policy, open data licensing that will be accepted by all providers of data of our users, a framework that will enable our users to understand what they can do with data, what is available, what are the conditions, and to establish that, a project was initiated, Open European Location Service, a 2-year project co-founded by the European Commission. It is funded in 50% from the European funds. The rest comes from the members. So you see the engagement of Mapping Authority in making that happening. There are few partners from our members that work physically and directly on establishing of this open ELS. They come from Norway, Netherlands, Great Britain, Finland, Spain, Sweden, and Poland. To understand where we are and what is possible, first we researched the legal background, and we found out that there is no direct obligation for the members to provide open data. It's rather a growing demand, and fully understandable need for open data from private sector, from citizens, and from some EU activities. So we find things that make it possible to open data in the interoperability framework, in Inspire, in Copernicus, mostly in the public sector information directive on access to public data. And since last year, there is a decision of the European Council which makes their documents open. So it also shows the direction, and it was a document that we were able to base on in our later activities. So to understand approach of our members to open data and what is out there actually, we run a research survey from September till November last year. So now I will present briefly the results of it. We wanted to find out what are the differences if open data is understood equally everywhere. And quite successfully, we received 20 inputs and responses from 32 countries, and 46 different institutions. But we also learned that there are huge differences in approach to open data. Everyone understands that open is free of charge for public administration. 9 of 10 do see open data as free and accessible for research and education. 8 of 10 understands open data as open for personal use, but only 6 of 10 sees open data as open to commercial activities, to any action that leads to gaining profit. There is also a difference in understanding how the data can be used, whether it can be viewed, searched, accessed, downloaded, and so on and so on. But we found out that almost everyone has open data, and almost everyone has something that is there out there to be accessed for free for the users. Wrong enter again. We asked if there is open data policy in the country, and almost 60% responses were that yes, and 8 that it's under development. So it shows the progress and it shows the direction. Much better response to question if there's an open data policy in your organization. Here, almost everyone is doing something in direction of open data. There are different approaches, but something is happening, and MCAs are not closed for open data. It's on their agenda. Is National Mapping Agency's policy related to the general approach to access of public sector information? Most responses indicate that yes. Some in blue do not mean that there is no open data policy or open data at all, but it comes probably from regulation on access to geodetic materials to So with these results, we were able to begin our work on open data policy that will allow our customers and clients to understand what they can expect. And such document was released, and it's adopted by Eurogeographics since June this year. You can find it on our webpage. So in it, we've come up with a definition of what is open data. How do we want our client to see the open data? What are the services? What does it mean to reuse it? So what is our approach to charges? And what is the licensing? Briefly, no charges. The open data must be free of charge for reuse. Services, download and viewing should be free of charge. That answers the charges, that there are no charges. And we introduced open license that will cover data from all the suppliers. The policy describes the principles that are behind opening this products that we want to supply. I know that I'm over time, so I'll let this be. You will be able to access the presentation and see it later, but it's it's similar to all the open data policies based on open data charter. So no surprise there. Currently, Eurogeographics has one product that is already there, available as open data. This is our Euro Global Map that is 1 to 1 million scale and covers 45 countries. But as I said, this is an ongoing project. So we've built up the framework. Now we are working on the content. So hopefully the content will be Euro Global Map as a service. Euro regional geographical names, open cadastral index map, addresses, buildings, and transportation network. So, possible, it is possible. It needs effort, it needs a lot of work. There is a lot of obstacles to be overcome, but national authorities have the drive and will to open their data, not only inspired data, but whatever could be useful to citizens, to the community, is seen as possibly open in future. It's not easy, but we need to work on it. Pan-European data, open authoritative pan-European data is out there. It's ready to be used. There will be more. Data can be accessed under agreed open license, and it's an ongoing process. So we will see more. It does not matter how slowly you go, as long as you do not stop on the way. That's Confucius, and I think we must not stop. Thank you.